We're going to have a look today at measure, okay? And first we'll look at what units you should use, okay? So for measuring length, there's 4 common units that people use. They are millimeters, or mm, centimeters, cm, meters, that's just m, or kilometers, okay? So a millimeter is tiny. See on your ruler, the smallest little increment, the smallest gap between the little lines, that's a millimeter. And that's good for measuring tiny things, or even for measuring big things really accurately, okay? So they use millimeters a lot in technical, because when you're cutting a piece of wood, you really need to have it accurate, like to the nearest millimeter rather than to the nearest centimeter, okay? So what size is a millimeter? If you stacked up 10 pieces of paper, that'd be about a millimeter. Or kind of, if you sharpened a pencil, like across the tip of that, that's a millimeter. It's teeny, okay? A centimeter, we use these a lot in maths, so it's pretty small, maybe like across the size of a pea, or maybe your smallest fingernail, that's maybe about a centimeter across. Okay, so pretty small, still pretty accurate, and 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, okay? A meter is medium, so you'd measure kind of medium-sized things with meters, like maybe your own height, or the height of a building, the length of a classroom. A meter, this might sound silly, but you'll have seen a meter stick. That's a meter long, okay? It's about the length of a guitar or the height of a 4-year-old, okay? A kilometer is bigger, okay? Oh, and I should have said a meter is 100 centimeters, okay? Or 1,000 millimeters. Now, a kilometer is bigger, okay? If you walked for 15 minutes at an average pace, that's about a kilometer, okay? It's 1,000 meters, okay? So a kilometer is 1,000 meters, okay? It is 100,000 centimeters, and it's 1,000,000 millimeters, okay? Measuring weight, tiny weights is a milligram, okay? The weight of a tiny feather, or half a mosquito. There's not much. Milligrams are used maybe in science. You might not even use milligrams in science, but like in an actual lab, they would use milligrams when they're being very accurate. You get things like the weight of drugs in medicine might be measured out in milligrams, but it's not something you would, they're so small you would hardly use them in day-to-day life. A gram is a kind of normal small unit, and even a gram is tiny. That's the weight of a paper clip, but a gram is 1,000 milligrams, okay? So a gram's about the weight of a paperclip or a pinch of salt, okay? A kilogram is 1,000 grams, okay? And that's for kind of medium weight things. So you'd measure things like your own weight, you might measure in kilograms. That's the weight of a litre bottle of water, or like a bag of flour. So it's quite heavy, but it's not, you know, you could lift it, okay? A ton is really heavy. That's 1,000 kilograms, okay? That's the weight of like a car or a giraffe, okay? For measuring liquid, a milliliter that's the liquid that takes up the same space as a little centimetre cube. Do you remember the little centimetre cubes you maybe used in primary school for counting units? That's what 1 millimetre would be if it was a liquid, okay? A centilitre is 10 of those, or like 10 of those little centimetre cubes of water. A can of juice is 33 centilitres, or 330 millilitres. That's kind of a common thing. A litre, that's 1,000 millilitres, or 100 centilitres, and that's, I mean, just imagine a litre bottle of water, okay? So that's the different units, and you can pick which one to use depending on, like, you want a smaller unit if you want to be really accurate, okay? And obviously, like, small units are good for measuring smaller things, whereas bigger units are better for measuring bigger things. So you wouldn't measure the distance from Edinburgh to Glasgow in millimetres. It'd be bonkers. You'd want to use kilometres, okay? You wouldn't measure the weight of a truck in milligrams, okay? You'd get too big of a number, okay? But if you want to measure something really accurately, you would use those smaller units.